Okay, so what we're here to talk about today is, the life cycle and the onboarding process to take an existing asset, tokenize it, and put it on tZERO for secondary trading. So a little bit of background on tZERO and how we got here. So back in 2013, 2014, Overstock.com was the first major online retailer that started accepting Bitcoin as a payment type on their website. Now, Overstock was also a notorious target for short selling from the time they went public in 2005 through, today, and they still are a big target for naked short selling. So at the time, the CEO, Dr. Patrick Byrne, he was an early crypto adopter. He wanted to accept it as a payment type on the website, but he also saw the value of the underlying technology and, saw the use case for trading securities using blockchain to prevent what he would call mischievous behavior in capital markets, especially naked short selling. So that's when I joined tZERO. My first job at Overstock was with my friend Tron here in the front row and 5 other developers was, Patrick wanted to create the first public security to trade on a blockchain. And we did this as kind of a proof of concept back in 2016. We issued a preferred equity, Overstock Preferred, OSTKP, and it launched in December of 2016. It has since been replaced by a new preferred equity class called OSTKO that was paid out as a dividend to all of the common stockholders of Overstock. So that's really what gave birth to tZERO. And the name tZERO, again, is, a philosophy of Patrick's was as soon as you separate the trade and the settlement and you put 3 days of settlement time in between it, that's what creates the opportunity for the mischief, right? Things like naked short selling, failure to deliver, etc. So the mission of tZERO is to reunite the trade and the settlement, and instead of T+3, you have tZERO. So that's really where the name comes from. As far as the larger trading ecosystem goes, the right way to think about it is tZERO is broken into 3 business verticals. tZERO ATS is the secondary marketplace. That's where all of the trading occurs. tZERO Markets is our retail broker. That's our, B2C, that's the consumer-facing product. That's where you can open an account and log in to trade on the secondary market. And then we also provide our own tokenization technology services, which is currently supported on Ethereum, Tezos, and Algorand. The most recent of which is Exodus, went live last week, and it was tokenized and is trading on the Algorand blockchain. All right, so talking about liquidity, right, and what that really means, and where does liquidity for tZERO ATS and our secondary marketplace come from? And it really comes through 2 channels, right? It comes through our own user base through tZERO Markets, our retail customers, and it comes through our B2B business, which services about 125 broker-dealers today through SpeedRoute. And what that does is it gives you kind of a spectrum of secondary trading all the way from a retail investor up to accredited and through institutional trading. And talking a little bit about the ideal asset that we would look to trade, right? So we can trade anything from a private asset all the way up to a public asset. So what does that really mean? Registered companies that are doing, SEC registered offering, Reg A, Reg A+, Reg D, Reg CF, Reg S. And, in part of our mission to bring liquidity and democratize access to private equity, our main focus is on private equity, and the largest portion of our pipeline is in the real estate sector. Now, anything down to an NFT, anything of value, right? A lot of noise right now about NFTs, a piece of art, a song, a high-end designer handbag. If you can tokenize anything of value and you trade it, as we believe, all NFTs are going to be considered securities in the future. Because if anybody buys it with the expectation that they're going to sell it for a profit later, it automatically gets into security land under the Howey test. And I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with the Howey test, but the way I like to explain it to people, in 2017, when the utility token craze and the ICO craze was going on, you can sell a token to power a video game at the arcade, and that's fine. But if you sell the token and use the proceeds to build the arcade, it's not fine. So for tZERO, we've really, kind of been doing a regulated and compliant trading ecosystem since 2016. And we think most of your assets, that are being issued under the NFT flag today are going to end up being in securities land. As far as the process goes, right? Number one, you've got to identify an asset. Now, this could be a building, it could be a portfolio of 300 buildings, it could be a private technology company like tZERO. Once you've identified an asset, the most important thing you need to consider is going to be a custody model. And at tZERO, we support two different custody models. We will support investor self-custody, and we will also support broker-dealer custody. And it's important depending on the asset that you're looking to trade. Some of the assets you look to trade, like a foreign fund, for example, are going to have a limit of 100 holders before they have to go register with the SEC under the 40s Act and become a registered investment company with the SEC. This comes with a lot of overhead in terms of reporting, and a lot of requirements on the issuing company. So having the ability to keep track of that holder count using smart contracts and using the blockchain allows us to trade an asset like a foreign fund with a 100 holder limit and have a threshold, right, where once I hit, let's call it 98 holders, I don't want to put the issuing company out of compliance, put them over 100 holders. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the way that asset's going to trade in my ecosystem, and now I either have to exit my entire position or I have to buy somebody's entire position, right? And what this really provides is tailored liquidity by the issuer and by the asset class that they're trading. Another good example is geography. Let's say an issuer wants to trade only amongst accredited investors and only in the US. I can put that in my compliance engine and enforce it using smart contracts that will disallow anybody outside of the US that doesn't have a US residence from trading the asset. But it gives the issuer the flexibility if they later want to open it up to other geographies and other classes of investors, we can change that, open it up to retail and open it up to, call it Japan, Australia, and Singapore. So it really gives every issuer a very flexible and very customizable trading experience. The next step after you've identified a custody model is we're going to want to open some tZERO Markets accounts for your existing investors, right? And I'll use the example of Aspen Digital. So Aspen Digital is a $20 million fund, and it has an ownership stake in the St. Regis Hotel in Aspen, Colorado. And when they initially onboarded with us, they had 14 LPs, mostly out of Southeast Asia and Thailand. So what we did when we re-tokenized it for them is, we opened a brokerage account for each of the existing holders on that cap table, and we re-tokenized it. We delivered the shares right into their brokerage account, and on day one of secondary trading, those 14 LPs provided all the sell-side pressure, right? Also, a little bit about transfer agents. Obviously, we're all here at a Vertalo conference. Vertalo is one of the transfer agents that's integrated into the tZERO ecosystem. What we've done with regulators, with the SEC and FINRA, is we've been able to tokenize and trade private equity with the understanding that the on-chain record, the addresses, the quantities, and the ownership is going to mirror an SEC-registered transfer agent's books and records for the company. So when you think about what's on-chain, right, it's really the cap table. And if you look at any of tZERO's smart contracts, you're going to see in that hash map essentially a mirrored copy of the cap table. So the process of actually tokenizing an asset is really, you decide if you have a strong preference which chain you're going to be on, whether it's Ethereum, Tezos, or Algorand. And we have what is essentially a template for different asset classes, whether it's an equity, a bond, an ETF, what exemption or what registration it was offered under. And we will deploy into our ecosystem the asset contract. We will custom tailor all of the compliance rules around the secondary trading of the asset, and we'll plug it into what we call the global registry of investors. So each investor in the tZERO ecosystem, when they come in and onboard, they're going to fill out a broker-dealer application, and they're going to provide certain metadata, right? This includes income, investment objective, country of residence, country of tax, their social security number, a whole bunch of different metadata. And what we do is we create an on-chain address for them that also stores this metadata, not on-chain, but what the metadata is. And that allows me to turn on and turn off certain jurisdictions, and also turn on and turn off certain investor profiles for trading in the secondary market for that asset. Selecting a trading go-live date, right? That's the most exciting part. Typically, we will do this on a Monday, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but the best day to put out a press release about secondary trading, bring in the most interest, have a very good and robust trading ecosystem on the first day. You'll typically put out the press release on a Thursday, and you'll go live on a Monday.